Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And on today's episode, we've all been there, standing at the crossroads of struggle and pride, knowing that we need help, but hesitating to ask. Today, we're diving into why reaching out is one of the bravest steps we can take, because asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a testament to our resilience. So, here with me to talk about that today, as she is every single week. I am JDK Winnikin, by the way, but she is the one and only, the incomparable Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
All right. What do you think of today's topic?
Oh, I really like it.
Yeah.
It hits home.
It hits home?
Sure, because like you said, we've all been there.
Yeah. And has it been a challenge for you, generally speaking, to ask for help, or have you gotten better at that over the years? How would you describe yourself?
Gotten better over the years with practice and time, but there is certainly something that takes a moment of humbling and realization about it and acceptance of yourself. But yeah, I've gotten better. How about you?
Yes, I have gotten better at it. Well, once upon a time, of course, I never wanted to ask for help. And I've lived a life in the past where not asking for help brought me to the lowest point that one can get to. And so then I did have to ask for help. So in some ways, the life I've lived since then, past dozen plus years, has been based on asking for help.
Nice.
However, I bet you're wondering why I had this idea for a topic.
Yeah, because this actually was your idea.
It was my idea.
You just came to me and you're like, this is what we're talking about.
Did I just tell you that's what we were doing? Or
I mean,
I ran it by you, didn't I?
You do always run it by me, and I really appreciate that. But you felt so strongly about it, and like there was a real personal conviction of this topic. And I was like, all right, we're doing this.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, there is, because I realized that lately I've had to ask for help a lot. And despite the fact what I just mentioned, sort of having done that once upon a time, my lowest point, I still found it somewhat challenging.
Really?
Yes, like the hit on that spot of you that doesn't want to, like I said at the top, the struggle between, pride,
Sure,
and really kind of needing the help.
Was it still somewhat difficult because what you were asking for felt like really personal and it was very heavy? It wasn't like you're like, hey, I need a favor. Can you go get my groceries for me today because I'm sick and can't leave my house? I imagine it was something more than that.
That's a great question. It was actually a series of things.
Oh, a series?
There was like 3
Love
or
that.
4 things. And
Wow.
all of them had to do with hitting that spot where all the shoulds come up,
Oh,
right?
sure.
I shouldn't have to ask this, or I should have made different decisions, right? And nothing really bad, right? Nothing that doesn't happen to people in life. Just a bunch of stuff happened all at once, right? And it comes from, as we've talked about, and Ashley, you're part of this, and we've shared it on the air, we're doing a lot of new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which there more on that later in the show, everybody. We're doing a lot of new stuff, and I'm transitioning a lot in my work life. And of course, we're expanding what we're doing here. And so that involves a lot of balancing, a lot of acrobatics in terms of my time, in terms of my finances, right? And certainly need to lean in on my relationships, right? The support that I have. I'm happy to say I have a lot of that, a lot of support. But it was just all of a sudden a lot at once. And I noticed in myself, I'm having a hard time asking for help, despite the fact that I know and we coach on letting people know that asking for help is a really good thing to do. So I'm outing myself in a way is what I'm doing.
I really appreciate that vulnerability, and we can all relate.
Well, good.
You are not alone.
Good. So for all of you listeners out there, I'm sure you already thought of a time. And maybe you're in one of those times right now where you're like, I need to ask for help for something. It could be something small. It could be something larger. But I would like everybody to notice the feelings that come up with that when you think of needing to ask for help when you really don't want to, right?
Yep.
When you really don't want to, and how that feels. And maybe think of a time where you've done that before and you've come through it, or perhaps there's something going on for you today. And just kind of hold that lightly as we have today's conversation. Because what I also want to point out at the top here, Ashley, is the fact that this is a challenge for us is a part of being human. It's actually encoded into our brains and into our bodies. So that resistance
Oh,
is
that gives
normal.
relief. Okay,
Right,
good.
doesn't it?
It's
It does on
normal.
it does on some level, right. It does. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think if I when I say this is a normal part of who we are, what do you think explains that? That this is normal, that this isn't something that we're just making up, that asking for help can be a challenge.
I mean, well, like you said, it is wired in us to about that. That is like normal part of being a human being. But I mean, there is something about it that is just a little difficult to swallow when you're like, I'm in this space and I need to ask for help because I think we have these expectations for ourselves.
Mhm.
And the fact that now we have to ask for help tells us we failed to meet our own expectations
Ah.
and we have let ourselves down. And now I'm openly admitting to somebody else that I let myself down,
Mm.
which is embarrassing. Maybe really, especially if you're like type A and you set up all these goals that you plan to hit and you might have spoken them outwardly to people or to the public, like, I'm going to achieve this, and then you don't. You're like, did my value just drop? Am
Mm.
I no longer worthy? Am I no longer trustworthy?
Mm.
If I said I was going to do this and now I failed. And now I not only did I not reach it, but now I need to ask for help. Like, are those people not even going to think anything of me anymore?
Oh,
And I mean, you could really spiral on that one, but I,
wow. That was
anyways,
really well explained. Do
thanks.
you have an experience with that?
Yes.
You
I
do?
mean, sure, I am speaking a little bit personally. I mean, as a child, I just thought I knew everything, right? I mean, we all do as we're
Mm,
kids,
sure.
right, growing up. But I think I noticed it much more where I learned all of that experience when I started going into management of people,
Okay.
because now people are looking up to me. And when you're in management, people naturally believe you have the answers. You probably know best, at least in the short run while they're getting to know you. They're like, they were put in that position for a reason. They were given that much responsibility for a reason. So I'm going to trust and believe that they know all the answers. They have it all together. They get everything completed, so on and so forth. It's a pretty high bar, I believe,
Mhm.
and I felt. And since I was new to management, and I am a bit of a perfectionist and a type A. I'm like, well, obviously, I know how to do all these things, and the way that I do it is very efficient, and so clearly I know best. So, if I feel like people are not doing it right, then they should do it the way I'm doing it, or I should just do it myself and just
Mhm.
because I can trust on myself and believe that I will get it done. Obviously, I'm a human, I can't do it all. So I then started to learn how to delegate properly to people that can handle certain responsibilities to offload and we get it all completed. But there were times where I'm like, I'm not getting it done. And because I have such a full plate, things are starting to fall through the cracks and people are starting to see it.
Mm. And so you start all those
Yes.
things you just mentioned
Oh, yeah.
started to pop up.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm like, "What if they don't respect me anymore?" Because they see that they know I'm overwhelmed with work, so they give me that level of understanding of, like, she's got a lot going on and she's juggling a lot of things.
Mhm.
However, I'm like, I started getting really short with people, like, in my responses, I'd be a little snappy, I'd be always in a frustrated, like, grumpy mood. They would know that I'm putting in a lot of time and effort, but the outcome that I'm trying to work towards is not happening.
Mhm.
And there was some times where I'm like, "Are they gonna give up on me?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not hitting the metrics that I had set out to hit."
Mhm.
And I hold them all to a good high expectation, but I feel that I'm falling short of the one I set for myself.
Mm.
So, will they still try to do their very best because they see that I am failing?
Mm.
Or is it good that they see I'm failing so they know I'm also human and just, trying to work hard and get it all done? But there were so many thoughts that came up with that when I started going into management in the beginning.
Gotcha. So is it then like the challenge was asking them to help you do your job more effectively or to give you more feedback or
It was more like letting them know, like, I, can't do it all. I will be first to admit, and when I tried doing it all, it wasn't going great. I was just
Mm.
stretched too thin, and I verbally said, like, "I understand I'm falling short in these areas, but I'm leading our team, and I need help for our entire team to get where we're trying to go."
Man.
And so, I just let them know, like, "Hey, I need help. I think you're great at doing this. Can I pass this off to you?"
Gotcha.
And and you know what? It also is a gift for those people because then they feel really good about being able to help you. So as much as it was really uncomfortable having that conversation and, like, humbling my pride and being like, "Okay, I set my standards for myself super high to do all this, and I didn't quite make it,"
Mhm.
they were so much more happy and willing to see and meet me where I was at and help me.
So it wasn't as bad as you feared.
Not as bad as I thought once I got on the
Ah,
other side.
okay, yes. Now let's take that example, and I'll share one of mine too. I'm not gonna ask you to go into your own vulnerable mode and not share my own. But
Fair.
this is a good way to introduce a couple things on how this is hardwired into us, right? So, one of these things, and this is all something that's talked about a lot in neuroscience, particularly neuroplasticity, that we talk a lot about the ability of our brains to adapt and create new patterns, new neural pathways to kind of build resilience, right? It's a
Mhm,
big part of what we talk about in our coaching and on this show. So, there's a couple things here. First of all, our brains are social brains. They're wired for connection, right? We
mhm.
are meant to be interactive with other human beings. And so when those things come up like you just listed out very, very clearly, the fear of rejection is an inherent part of that social
Mhm.
brain wiring. We're automatically afraid of it.
Right.
And anybody who says they aren't is probably using a little bit of bravado to try to convince
Denial.
themselves, because people who really have moved past that
Mhm.
don't really trumpet it very much. They don't need
Sure.
to, right? They don't need to.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's that. The other thing that came up in your example, cognitive biases. We tend to underestimate people's willingness to help,
Mhm.
right? Because everybody has their own lives,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Or we set expectations. They see me a certain way, or I'm supposed to be in a certain part of my life. That's what happens to me, right?
Oh,
That's
okay.
what happens to me.
Oh.
Certain part of my life. And because of that, they're going to be less willing to help. Or maybe they're willing to help, but they're going to judge me, or I'm going to go down in their estimation, this kind of thing. So, to give you my example of this, I have been shifting for the last few years in my career choices, my career paths.
Mhm.
And it has been a little bit of fits and starts here and there, trying some things that haven't quite panned out, right? Or I go one direction and go, okay, this part isn't working as well, but this other part
Mhm.
is working better. So I've made some adjustments along the way that, just the way things have worked out recently, have put me into a time crunch, temporary time crunch, and a temporary financial crunch.
It's a lot of crunch.
It's a lot of crunch. There's a lot of crunchiness going on.
Wow.
A lot of crunchiness going on. All very short term, because I have all these contracts for the things I'm doing now all coming in. They just aren't here yet.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
all of a sudden I had to go, "Oh boy, in order to hit the marks I need to hit, you're right, the
Better
responsibilities I
start
have,
crunching.
I need to ask for some help." And I did this. I was like, "Man, people are not gonna wanna help me. Everybody's got their own stuff,
Really?
or they're gonna think less of me because I'm a 51-year-old man. I should have all this stuff figured out right now, by
I feel
now."
like everyone would wanna help you.
Well, thank you. And I want to believe that, and certainly I think I do know that I can, right?
Mhm.
But it was enough of that fear, enough of that doubt, enough of that story, enough of that cognitive bias, that I was finding it really hard to do that. So I was scrambling to find anything else I possibly could. And here's the thing, I did. I talked to every single person I needed to talk to, like, "Hey, your contract's due. Can you get that in, please?" All these other things. And it just wasn't working. Like, it just wasn't working.
Oh,
I
snap.
could not control, obviously, how other people were going to
How did that
respond.
feel?
Terrible. It felt terrible because, based on what I was telling myself in terms of shoulds,
Mhm.
I should have been bugging them earlier, or I should not have overextended myself, or I should have had a little bit more of a cushion before I went this route. There was a lot of shoulds going on, second guessing myself,
Mhm.
which added to the problem, right? Because then it's self-doubt, it's self-judgment on top of that. So I'm already beating myself up a little bit, and then wanting to go talk to some people, and I'm already beating myself up.
Mhm.
Because what we do without recognizing is, when we lower our own estimation in our own eyes, in our own view, we're lowering in everybody else's too.
I believe that, yes.
Yeah. And I had to experience that not be the case. So
Mm.
when I finally reached out for some help, I told everybody what was going on, but every single one of them was like, "You're over explaining this. We get it. It's okay. We've got you. We've got it covered." And it was all covered, and I'm not joking, in like not even
Wow.
30 minutes,
Oh,
taken
wow.
care of.
That's
And
great.
exactly. And so that's really what showed me that. And so, So that third piece, right? The other thing about how this is wired into us, everything that you and I have just talked about in some ways is a cultural kind of
Sure.
expectation,
Yeah.
a societal influence, I guess we could call it, on how things are supposed to be. If you're a manager, you're supposed to be on top of it and telling everybody else what to do, not
Mhm.
asking for help.
Right.
If you're a 51-year-old man who's been successful in some area of his life, you shouldn't have to be asking for some short-term assistance to get things squared away because you should have. I mean, those are all expectations,
And
right?
I think and those are all very relatable expectations,
I
actual
think so.
stories and things that we went through. Because I would imagine there has got to be some listeners right now that are like, "That's me.
Mhm.
That's me right now," or "I
Mhm.
just went through that," or "I'm
Mhm.
about to go through that."
And I don't like it.
Yeah, and it's really uncomfortable, and I'm losing sleep at night, and I have no appetite anymore, and, like, all my passion for life is kinda waning right now because I'm not where I should be,
Mhm.
or
Or
I'm
where
not.
people expect me to be.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So, they're not alone, and, we're sitting here and we're okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's ways out of this.
Right. And it's through it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no way to get to the other side but through
that's
it.
the thing and that's the thing that's probably the toughest, whether we're talking about asking for help or in some other way, is recognizing that the only way through a challenge is to go through it,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And that's what this show really has always been about is developing more resilience internally with all the things we're talking about in order to move through those things a little bit more successfully and build a better life. And along the way, learn some important things like you and I have learned, in these examples that we talked about. The people that know us and that we're connected to want to help more than we
Yep. Oh, yeah.
expect,
Yeah.
more than we
And, I think because people believe in us and, we are good people that do good. I feel like we're,
generally
kind
speaking, yeah, I hope so.
people. And I think that people see beyond what we see as our shortcomings. And they're like, no, I see potential. I see goodness in there. And I want to pay into that.
Right, right. And I do think part of it too also is everybody knows that could be them.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a conscious thing,
Hmm.
even if it's what drives them to make sure they've got everything covered, right? They've got their financial cushions.
Sure.
They've got even if that's what
Cushions.
drives them, the concern about needing help is a real thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know what you're laughing
I
about, but
don't know why I'm laughing.
yeah,
Anyways,
that's the way. Maybe that's just your way of dealing with
laughing?
this
Oh,
subject.
maybe. But
Yeah.
I am excited because in our next segment, we have examples of things that people can do.
Absolutely. Things that we can do, actually, that we can do in the moment that don't require a lot to get us more, I guess, more available and more open
Mhm.
to asking for help. And just as importantly, receiving help, which we'll talk about. So when we come back from the break, we'll jump in on that here on Staying Power. See you in a minute.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
There's danger out there. It lurks on highways and quiet neighborhood streets. It's more likely to kill you than a shark, and more terrifying than the biggest snake. Distracted driving claims lives every day. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while you might think public speaking or the zombie apocalypse is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Find our app in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and take us with you wherever you go. Alternative Talk AM 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
Today we're talking about the importance of and the challenges involved in asking for help. And we talked a little bit in the first segment about some personal examples we've had with that recently. But we're going to continue with that discussion here. And so, but also, just in case, just need to get this in. If you end up missing any more of this episode, or you'd like to catch up on our other episodes, you can get this as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find episodes at our radio home, 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle, and in the show notes at both those locations, as well as on our YouTube channel, which you can watch as a live stream. In the show notes are all the different ways you can get a hold of Ashley and myself, particularly our email, stayingpowershow@gmail.com, as well as links to our social media feeds where you can reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you about the show. Any thoughts you have, any questions you have, any suggestions for topics, any problems you're running into, we'd love to hear from you, and we can even talk about it on the air. So thank you for joining us wherever you are, and thanks for supporting us along the way. We're excited about what we're building here. Okay, Ashley, so you teased at the front end or the back end of the last segment that there's some things we can do when it comes to kind of priming ourselves to better ask for help or to accept help, rather than just go through what we did, which was the trial and error of that awkwardness, right? I know. Don't look at me.
I don't know what that was.
I know. So,
Okay.
so you were talking about that. So what exactly did you mean? Things that we can do?
Well, there's different practical examples of things that you can do because when you're going through something like that, it's not comfortable, right? Let's just be honest. And depending on the person, it's all very person specific, but you can feel just like at unease, or like maybe your stomach is upset or whatever, or
In the body.
in the body. And people can feel like very overwhelmed in the body to the point where they're like, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I'm shaking because of stress, I just am so debilitated, I can't move. It can vary so much, or you can be all up in your head about it, where you can't focus on anything. Your thoughts are spiraling and you're starting to put yourself into like a panic sense.
Yeah. And that's when it gets really rough, because then in the panic mode, your brain and your body are going into overdrive and they're feeding each other, right?
Yes.
So the racing thoughts feeds the racing bloodstream, racing heart rate feeds the racing thoughts. And so that is certainly it. And so we talk a lot in our coaching about the somatic experience, somatic meaning body focused, right? Our brains, we tend to go to the brains. Like, if I can slow down my thinking, I'll be fine. What we coach is actually, if you help your body connect and slow down first, your brain will slow down with it.
Yes.
Right, eventually. So,
yes.
So that's why one of the first things I do, and I don't know if you do this, but I also coach clients to do this, is if a feeling's coming up, like the feeling of asking for help, and the feelings for me that come up are some fear, certainly discomfort, judgment of myself, all those things. Where do I feel that in my body when I'm feeling it? When I start feeling that, particularly when it starts to feel like it's too much, I go to that. I end up feeling that pretty much right where my chest meets my stomach.
Is that your solar plex?
Yeah, right in the solar plexus. Yeah, right there. And then I also can feel it in my shoulder blades, right behind my neck, right, and then right between my eyes. Right? It's almost like on the center axis, right through my body, starting my eyes, and it cuts right through the middle. And then if I get really scared in asking, sometimes when I'm asking for help or when I'm doing the difficult thing, I feel tingling in my hands or in my feet, right? Or I get hot and sweat a little bit. Those somatic tells can sometimes tell us what we're feeling and how we're feeling and where to go if we acknowledge them right away. Is that something that you do?
I'm not good at that. I'll be honest. I am starting to get better at it. I mean, I have awareness, but I've noticed whenever I'm in a situation like that, the first thing I go to is to rein in my thoughts, because I'm usually pretty good at being able to like ground myself with something and like slow my thoughts down. Be like, no matter what, I'm going to be okay. Like, I always put that down. Like, that is the first thought that always comes up. Like, no matter what, how this goes, whatnot, I will be okay.
And that's built on your experience of having been okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And always, coming back and being able to count on myself and whatnot. So I always solidify that thought first. And if I'm nervous, then I usually get warm, like you said, or I'll just feel like my heart racing substantially. That's where I always feel it's just like right there. I don't feel any sort of sensations like tingling hands or feet or anything. I will normally get a ridiculous headache. So it's always up in my brain.
You do get headaches. You do get headaches.
They're always up there.
And everybody has different ones. Some people get sick to their stomach.
Yeah.
right? I know people that do that. There's lots of different things. So you kind of go through your own kind of grounding exercise
Mhm.
when you realize that.
Yep.
And does that help when you say to yourself, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay? Does that
Yeah,
start a process in
it
your body as
it
well?
does, and it's only something I started doing probably within the last year or 2,
Mhm.
honestly, because before that, I was trial and erroring different things of, like, what works for me, and I have found that telling myself almost not in a parental sort of way, but, like, in a self-soothing type of manner of, like, "You're going to be okay because you know you can count on yourself, you can trust yourself, you are smart, you are capable, you're going to get through this."
Mhm.
And then usually if I'm, like, really starting to, struggle, then I do, calming my breath,
There you go.
counting the seconds, and
Mhm.
just really slowing that down because that will force my racing heart to slow down.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go out for like a walk, get all like your
Movement.
nervous energy out, get
Movement.
movement going, get your blood flowing, and give it a task to do.
Mhm.
I'll do things like that. And that usually can help clear my head enough that I can come back and refocus with like a new vision and then tackle whatever I'm dealing with.
Right.
Now I might have to do that like over and over again.
Sure. Sure.
It probably just doesn't happen just one time and I'm set, but
No.
those are usually what I end up doing.
For someone who says you're not very good at grounding exercises, you just laid out a whole bunch that you're
Oh,
actually pretty good at.
look at me.
So look at that. No, that's all really good. And you mentioned one that I do. I
Mhm.
like to get outside, and we know that open spaces and fresh air does help. It
Really
helps
does.
calm the body, right? Helps calm the body. Walking barefoot in the grass
Mhm.
or on sand at a beach, helps connect ourselves with something. And it's scientific. This is shown in studies of the brain and of the body that these things actually help. Breathing exercises for me. One thing that I do a lot for myself, and I do sometimes with clients, is I'll just have them notice their breathing. We hear all the time about box breathing,
Yep.
different counter breathing. That's all really good, but usually to try and start there, right, with a breathing technique can actually, for a minute, overload the nervous system. Like if you just
Mhm.
take a deep breath out of nowhere, it's like trying to pour too much water, like 2 liters of water into a 1 liter cup,
Mhm.
right? It's just too much. And that can actually lead to an increased tension in the body. So I just try to notice where my breathing's at. And I'll notice, oh, I'm shallow. I'm not breathing very deeply. I'm
Mhm.
breathing rapidly. That is a stress response, right? And it might
Yep.
be around whatever the feeling is, fear, recrimination, those types of things about asking for help.
Mhm.
And then, but here's the thing, if we notice our breathing by itself begins to lengthen out.
Yes.
So don't
You
fight it.
just feel so much better.
Notice where it's at. And yeah, and then
Uh-huh.
it starts to lengthen out. And then once it
Mhm.
lengthens out a little bit and you can feel the difference, right? Because oxygen entering the bloodstream opens up the bloodstream,
Mhm.
right? And it
Mhm.
reduces the tension in the arteries and the veins, reduces the tension on the heart. And those messages to the brain are no longer, this person is in crisis.
Right.
So ratchet things up, right? And that responds with a shift in the hormones that the brain is shooting through the body. It all works together.
Mhm.
But just noticing that breathing, letting it lengthen out, then moving into a breathing exercise can be a really great spot to get there. Because here's the thing we're afraid of in all of these things. We're having an anxious response because we're feeling vulnerable. In this
Right.
case, vulnerable to
Right.
asking for help for all the reasons we talked about in the first segment. So let's talk a little bit about some
Mhm.
actual exercises. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
You want to go back and forth?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the first one. How about that?
Go for it.
All right, there's a process called pendulation. And this is really good for when you're feeling overwhelmed. Like, Ashley, when you feel overwhelmed, do you shut down?
No.
What do you do? I shut
Well,
down.
I get quiet and really grumpy.
You get quiet and grumpy.
Probably because I wanna be left alone so I can focus. So if I put on like a grumpy shell, people will leave me
Okay.
alone.
So you kind of withdraw.
Yeah, I go inward.
You go inward.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So pendulation is something. So when you go inward, where do you feel it normally? Like you said, you get a headache.
Yeah, I'll
All
usually
right.
feel it right in my head.
Let's go with the headache. All right. So now, but what's a part of you when you want to feel good, like, or that you notice in your body feels good
Mhm.
when you're feeling good? Is it, if it's not a headache, when you're feeling good, where do you feel it?
Ooh. Hmm. I don't think I ever feel it in one specific spot. I
Sure.
just feel overall very light,
Very light. Okay.
like a
So
balloon.
let's just say, for the sake of this exercise,
Sure.
that you feel that in your chest. Okay. So
Okay.
headache is the bad in the
Mhm.
head,
Mhm.
right? in the chest, you feel that lightness.
Mm-hmm.
Pendulation is the process of recognizing both of those in a moment of overwhelm.
Mm.
So pendulation goes like this. Maybe in a situation where you've needed help and you're feeling resistance, notice where you feel that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for you, let's say it's in your head. For me, we're going to go with my solar plexus. Okay, so I feel it there. Ugh. Now, notice where that tension shows up. It's in my solar plexus, it's in your head, and it could be just about anywhere. So those of you listening, identify where that is for you. Now, shift your attention to a place in your body in that moment that actually feels better. Maybe that lightness in your chest. For me, I kind of feel it in the tops of my legs. That place, yeah.
You're so in tune.
Yeah,
That's
on
really interesting.
tops of my legs. I
Yeah.
always kind of feel it there. If I want to feel
Huh.
grounded, I can go there. And so I'm noticing that feeling in my solar plexus and then shifting my attention as I'm letting my breath just kind of stretch out. I just
Mhm.
go back and forth between my attention between that difficult space and that place of ease. So between my solar plexus and the tops of my legs.
Hmm.
For you, Ashley, it's to your head and then that lightness in your chest. Pendulum, right? It's a swinging back and
Right.
forth of just attention, awareness to those things,
Interesting.
and notice your breathing. That can reduce the somatic response that's in that fight or flight element, right? Because we're trying to get into the flow state with
Right.
these things.
Right.
So that's one. And you just go back and forth. What that does is it shows us, we get the experience of being able to hold those things at the same time. Tension and
That's
ease.
so important.
And we can choose where to go more so than we think. So that's pendulation.
Love that.
Isn't that a good one?
So good.
What about another one?
I do this actually, and this was a recent one, which I didn't realize it was until it actually had a name. And I'm like, oh wait, I do that. It's a way of settling your nervous system. It's called orienting.
Oh yeah.
And
Okay.
it's for those who don't know what it is. It's when you're in a state where you're, nervous and you're starting to spiral or you're feeling overwhelmed. Just be in your space and you look around and you pick an object or a thing, and that is basic, common, and you just focus on it. It could be like a window, it could be a plant nearby, a picture frame, something that's not moving and it's just there and it's always been there for a long time. And you just actually sit and focus on it and you realize like I'm in this place. I am not in danger because your nervous system is usually like spiraling and you're going into fight or flight or freeze and your body is like telling you like pick which one are we doing? What are we
Right.
doing? Because I'm freaking out and I have all this adrenaline and it needs
Make
to
a
go
decision.
somewhere.
Right.
Make a decision for me. And at times there is no decision to make, but what do you do with all that? And actually, if you focus in on a really boring innate object and you orient yourself of like, my body is not in danger, I am not in danger, you can actually calm yourself down and allow your nervous system to rest because they don't need to have all their guards up. They don't need to be on edge ready to like do something insane. And it actually will help calm you down and realize like I'm in a safe spot. No matter what is going on in my world right now, I am safe and I'm okay.
That's a great one. And so so you're saying something that you maybe don't notice on a regular basis. You
Yeah.
find it and focus on it.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
Learn
because
the details, what
you're
it
like,
looks
yeah,
like.
you're like in your space all the time, whether it's in like your car, your office, your home, wherever, and you're surrounded by things, and you might look at them without really looking at them, right? And it's like you have your office chair. When have you actually sat and really looked at your office chair?
Sure.
You probably don't even know what fabric it's made out of.
Sure.
But you look at it and sit on it every day.
Well, and and these are really good because these are things that we actually do sometimes without knowing that we're doing that. One of the reasons why people love bird feeders is exactly this. You have a bird feeder and you can watch it and you can focus in on it and you can see these birds show up and they're just there for a little bit and you get to focus on them.
Yep.
Wherever you're at, it takes you out of that. It puts you into that moment, and being present is where we connect with the flow state and get out of the fight, flight, or freeze because we're feeling anxious about something about to happen. In this case, asking for help.
Aquariums are good, like or a fish bowl.
Fish bowl.
Yeah.
Watching the fish. Yeah, those are good.
They're great.
All right, that's another good one. Okay, so there's another one for managing the big emotions that can come up with asking for help. There's a process called titration, which is called it's kind of breaking things down. For me, when I was thinking of the ask I needed to make of some people, right? It
Mhm.
felt huge. It
Sure.
felt really big.
Life-changing.
Yes, and I recognized in all this, recognizing how I was feeling that in my body, calming down, and what came to me in the process of kind of getting myself grounded was, I don't have to make the big ask just yet. I can make something smaller. So I reached out to the people that I knew I was gonna make these asks of and said, "Hey, I'm working through something. Can I talk to you later?" That was a
small
little
ask?
bit easier. That was a little bit easier, just starting the ball
Yeah.
rolling,
Did
right?
it feel easier afterwards? You're like, "Oh,
Yes.
not so hard."
Yes, in part
Love
because you're
that.
already committed and they're showing up to that. Because what they all responded was with, "Oh, sure. Are you okay?" And then my response was, "Yeah, I'm working through some things. I might need your help."
Mhm.
And sure, okay, call me when you can. Here's when I'm available, or I can step away now if you want to talk. What that did was it got the ball rolling, right? Instead of just launching in to making it big, it's kind of breaking it into bite-sized
Mhm.
pieces. Just
Oh.
start with the very basics. And sometimes that can even be, even if you're not sure you're ready to make an ask, letting somebody know the situation that you're in.
Mhm.
Hey, I'm feeling this and I'm going to have to ask some people for help and I just hate that feeling. And they're what are they going to respond with? Probably not, "Well, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
You know, "You
The
should have
worst
thought
they're
of
gonna
this."
say is, "I can't help you."
Right,
But
exactly, exactly. Okay. I think we have time for one
one more.
more.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
make it quick. Another one that I do that's very similar to, like, orienting, it's, safe place visualization.
Oh, yeah.
And we do this a lot without realizing it, but it's when again, when you're in a situation that's really difficult or uncomfortable, you can close your eyes and imagine what your safe place would look like. You
Mhm.
know, like, is it your grandmother's couch while she's giving you cookies? Is it a beach somewhere? Is it,
Ah,
a place where you feel comfortable, safe? It's always been a good experience, good feelings, whatnot. Sometimes you can get that from fragrance. You can get that from
it's true.
music. You can, like you see something, hear something, smell something, all your senses, and it takes you back to a moment of enjoyment, safety, goodness. And if you can take yourself back to that for a moment and find your safe place, close
Mhm.
your eyes and visualize, or if you have that song that brings you back somewhere, play that song. If you have that fragrance, a candle, perfume, whatever, and you put it around you, you can actually calm your breathing down
Mhm.
because you're visualizing that and you might be using the stimuli from something. But
Yeah.
to take yourself there because then it reminds you this is your home base, this is your safety zone. It's not so scary because I can always come back here and find calm and peace here.
Mhm.
Because for a moment, you are taking yourself out of the situation you're currently in and you're taking yourself somewhere else. And just that small pivot gives your body and brain so much relief
Mhm.
that you
Mhm.
probably don't even credit yourself for it.
Exactly. And what comes with that, of course, is the gratitude, the good memory, the good
Mhm,
feelings, which can balance that out, right? And so
mhm,
then you start getting that same experience we talked about earlier, where you are having these difficult feelings, but you're also having these really positive ones.
mhm,
And being able to hold those at the same time and work and exist through them and be okay is where we start making the decisions that we know we need to make. That's a great example.
Oh,
All
thanks.
right. Okay. Well, there's plenty more, but we don't have time for it at this point because we need to take another break.
Another
And when
break.
we come back after the break, we will do our weekly segment. This week it is 2 weeks. Again, I did it.
2
2
weeks.
minutes of triumph. So we'll be right back here on Steak Power. Stick around.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Don't ask me to talk.
There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacey Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
Wondering what's on next on Alternative Talk 1150? Check out 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hi.
And Ashley's always enjoying herself.
Oh,
I
am.
love that energy.
Thanks.
I do. Helps me enjoy things a lot more, frankly. So
Really?
yeah.
Oh, good.
All right. And today we were talking about the difficulties, but also the importance of asking for help and why that can be one of the best things that we can do for ourselves, even though it's probably one of the most challenging things we can do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already talked about practical steps. We've talked about how this works in the brain. We're going to go a little further on the practical steps here in the last segment. But first, it is time for our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take about 2 minutes to talk about something over the past week that has been either a triumph or a terror, and what that's done for us, all in the name of showing that type of vulnerability that we're talking about today. So this week, it is 2 minutes of triumph. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Love that. Yes. Ashley, you are
I know
first.
You do. Oh,
What you got?
thanks. Well, in light of the saga of my eye injury story, I figured I owe everyone who is so invested in me in my story of how I am doing. So just to conclude all of that nonsense, my eye is actually okay.
Hey,
Thank
that's good news.
I know it looks great. They both do.
It does
But
look great. Can't even tell.
Oh, gee, thanks. So there is a little bit of healing process that's still happening. So all I have to do is just put these really annoying medicated eye drops in at night.
Okay.
Because apparently that your eyeball actually does it gets a little inflamed overnight, and it can actually, I'm just dropping the word, but anyways, it's a little larger than normal, and as you wake up and go about your day, it goes down to normal size. But because of that, I was feeling aggravation in the spot that was injured. So she's like, just use some medicated eye drops for now, until it fully heals up, and then you'll be fine.
That's amazing.
So
Congratulations.
all's good. That's
That
my
is good.
triumph.
That is good.
Thanks.
You had a lot of people asking you about this out of the
I
blue.
was so touched that so many people were checking in about it. It was very kind.
Yeah. It's always fun when that happens. And you
know. And they were from people I was not expecting too.
know.
So it was very
Did
cool.
they hear about it on the show?
Yes. I'm
Even
like,
better.
you tune in? That's
Even better.
great.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's
Thank you to
fine.
all those people. And thanks for checking on Ashley too.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm glad everything's okay.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, no damage. All right. My 2 minutes. The Staying Power Network continues to grow. We are really close. I mean, literally close to signing a new show that we're going to be producing under the Staying Power banner. And we love the shows we have. Diaspora is a great show. Made of More is a great show. And those are growing and developing over time. This one is going to be really fun too. And I can't say anything more about it at this point
I can't wait
because
until we can.
yes, but you're going to be hearing more about it in the weeks ahead. We're pretty excited about it. It's a really big moment for us.
It is a very large moment.
It is. It
very
is.
proud.
It's going to be really good. So I'm very excited that the work that we've been putting in on that, and it's been a really easy process. This team we're working with is just as excited about us as we are about them.
I know.
And it feels really good. So you'll be seeing more about that in the weeks ahead. So that's mine.
Love it.
It's a triumph. All right.
All right.
Okay. So let's, in this last segment, Ashley, let's, we've talked about different somatic techniques.
Yeah.
Let's kind of break things down into some practicalities. Asking for help. If it feels so big, what are some actionable strategies to make it less big and kind of get there, right? And experience that. So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start, but I kind of am going to steal something that you said earlier, is by doing a smaller ask, starting with smaller asks for help. Kind of like you said, you broke down your larger one by just putting it out there like, hey, I need to ask you something. Are you available to talk at some point? And that helped alleviate some of the, oh no, feeling that you were having. And it worked. And it's true. It's similar to like building up your confidence. You do this over and over and it becomes easier. You kind of find your way with it. So when you're facing something that's really overwhelming, or you're like, I have to humble myself and ask for help, start with the smaller things because no one actually expects you to do it all. And nobody expects you to be perfect and successful all the time. They
This is
just
true.
don't because they know they're not.
Right. Right.
So start with the small things.
Start with the smaller
That's what
things,
I-
lead up to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing when asking for help that is really important is be specific. It can be really tempting at the front end of asking for help to want to give someone the full story, right? To give the full context.
Oh,
Or-
really?
Yeah, yes, it can be. She's looking at me and laughing for a reason. It can be really tempting to do that when really what's best is actually to make the specific request at the front end. So the
Mm.
person knows what it is that you're needing help with, and then explain what's happening. The reason why that's more effective is for two reasons. One, you get the ask out of the way. So the thing that you're most worried about, feeling the most tension about, feeling in your body, wherever you feel that,
Mhm.
you're getting that out of the way. Second, from the listener's point of view, they're actually now paying attention to the context because if you're explaining the context before you make the ask, they're wondering what the ask is.
And they're totally missing the context.
And they're missing the context, not as connected to it as
Yes.
before. So if it's something where you're needing to ask for money, saying, I'm in a financial pinch and I'm looking for help.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you can help. Here's the situation.
Hmm.
They may say right away, how much do you need? And you can say that, right? Say whatever it is. But then it's out in the open and that person is already thinking, okay, can I do this? Can I not do this? They're probably going to know. But then they can hear the context and they can become part of the problem solving process for you, whether they can help you fully in that request or not. It allows them to kind of be equal partners in this conversation rather than waiting through the context for the big reveal. Right?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You don't want them to watch a movie to get to the outcome, right? So you want to be specific from the very front end for both for your own sake and for
Mhm.
their sake.
I like that. And I mean, you can even use that practice in any area, like any
Mhm.
difficult conversation or tough or uncomfortable conversation, not necessarily just asking for help,
That's
but
very true.
you can use that in your relationships
Yeah, like
or at work.
yeah, like what you said to me that one time does not work for me, or I'm hurt by such and such that
Yeah.
happened, or I'm bothered by this experience. Oh, why? Here's why. Here's the context.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's honest, right? It puts
Yeah.
everybody into the same space of what you're going to be looking for,
Well,
just being specific.
And it's almost like an invitation for the other person to meet you there and like work through it.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, then you're just building up resentment. And then they're like, why are they being such a way?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not saying, so then they start acting such a way. And then,
Mhm.
it just spirals.
Right.
Another thing that you can do is just normalize the experience for yourself. And we've talked about this kind of as a common thread through this entire episode, but it is normal. I mean, you think about it, people that start companies, they start hiring positions because that is their way of asking for help.
Oh,
Like that's why people have jobs, is because not everybody can do all of it. So
that's a
they
good
just
point.
made it into a job instead of asking for help. But there's other, moms at home need help with things, right? And so they usually ask family members, the kids, whatnot. Friends ask friends for favors all the time. Hey, I need a ride somewhere. Can you, help me out with this thing or whatnot? Like I need a wingman on my date or whatever, like it can look so many different ways.
Yeah.
And usually those ones are a little bit lighter and we don't think anything of it because we're like, it's going to end up being something good for that person too.
Mhm.
Whereas in these instances, it's like, I might be putting somebody out by asking them this question, or I might be asking something that I feel the responsibility about. So they're probably going to feel a responsibility about it too.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to put that on them because it's not their responsibility, but I'm just making them aware. So if they feel generous and able and willing to help, they will do so.
That's true.
But it's totally normal.
It is. It's a shared experience.
Yeah.
We all have.
And, and extending that opportunity, because sometimes as much as it's hard to see it that way, I believe that's what it is unless you've really dug yourself in a hole because you made a bunch of bad decisions and now, that's one thing. But when you're just genuinely down in a rough spot and you're asking for help, you are giving an opportunity to somebody else to do something that's going to make them feel really good too.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's a gift.
Absolutely, it is. And even if you've made a bunch of terrible decisions and put yourself in that spot, it's also a mistake to underestimate that aren't
Yeah.
people out there who won't help you through that, because we don't know necessarily what other people have already gone
This is
through,
true.
right? We don't know that. So it gives us an opportunity to see that shared experience. All right. And then here's the last one that I can think of. When that process is done, when you've asked for help and whatever answer you've received, and generally speaking, it's going to be positive. Even if somebody can't necessarily help the way you want, you get that support. They can give you ideas. You never know where it's going to come from and what it's going to look like. Reflecting, once that experience is over, reflecting on the experience that was positive. Oh, I asked for help. Remember that you did. And remember what the response was. Maybe jot it down in a journal, or make sure it's something that you intentionally spend time internalizing and examining your feelings about. Examine those feelings of relief, gratitude, calmness, maybe some renewed excitement, renewed hope for your situation. Whatever those are, recognize those are very real. And those are actually responses to something that's actually happened. Whereas all the anxieties we're having about asking for help are emotional responses to things we're afraid are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we only focus on those and only remember those, and those are easy to remember because they capture our attention, after we make those asks to reflect and internalize, those can be really helpful in helping the body and the brain remember, hey, you've done this before and it worked out okay. You don't have to be as afraid this time. Maybe it becomes easier the next time to ask for help, whereas before it would have been harder, right? That's what resilience is in the end, right? Is better being able to navigate through those things. Okay, so
I really like that.
yeah, I think it's important, so we would encourage everybody listening to take a look at one area of your life, and chances are you've already thought of it by now, and that should tell you something. If it's come to mind quickly, something that you need help on, or that you want to ask for help on, or you're afraid to ask for help on, it's probably the sign where you need to go. Identify one area, and what would that support look like? Where might you go to get it? And let us know what you do with it. Even if you don't do anything with it, how are you feeling about it? What's coming up for you? Where do you feel it in your body? All the things we've talked about. Maybe try out some of the techniques that we talked about in the second segment, or even in the third segment, and see how that helps. And then the final thing I would say is share with us what those are. You can find us on social media. We're all over the place. Share those things with us, or send us an email at stayingpowershow@gmail.com. All right. So Ashley, should I tell everybody this thing, this illustration, this story that happened today?
If you got it,
I can do it in 2 minutes.
whittled down. Oh my gosh, you get another 2 minutes.
Well, I told this story. This just happened today. One of the things about asking for help, and one of the reasons why it's so important. Today, I had an interesting experience. I was driving, and on the side of the road, I saw a person who was holding a cardboard sign asking for help. I'm not going to go into all the details for this. They were looking for money. I realized as I pulled up to this stoplight, I knew this person.
Like, you knew them personally?
I knew them personally.
Wow.
And I was very surprised that it was them. And they recognized me, so I knew. I was like, that's who this is. So I turned the corner. Instead of going where I was going, I turned the corner, parked where I could, and walked out there. And sure enough, this was a person I knew. And they said they were doing okay. I said, wait, I thought you were A, B, and C. Is everything okay? They said, yeah, everything's okay. It's a little tough right now, but I'm all right. I offered help. I said, look, you don't, if you're not telling me the truth right now, that's okay. But I'm going to invite you to tell me if you need help, I'm willing to help. They said no. They were okay. They declined the help. That really struck me today, knowing that we were going to talk about this, right? About this thing today.
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe they're not. But to be in a situation where you are standing on the street corner asking for money seems to indicate that help is needed, right? And there are plenty of people who could need help who don't always take it even when offered.
Right.
So for me, it became all the more reason for me to ask for help.
Sure.
Long before any of us are at that spot. So we'll see what happens. I left that person my info and told him to reach out to me. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, just to put an exclamation point on today's episode.
Look at that.
All right. Thanks so much, Ashley. That was great.
Thank you, JD. It was a pleasure.
Really good stuff. And thank you, all of you, for listening to this episode of
Or
Staying
watching.
Power, or watching on our stream. So happy to have you. We will be back next week with another episode. Until then, I'm JD.
I'm Ashley.
We will see you soon.
Bye.